the Cowardly Dog is an American animated horror comedy television series created by John R. Dilworth for Cartoon Network. Its central plot revolves around a somewhat anthropomorphic purple/pink dog named Courage who lives with his owners Muriel and Eustace Bagg, an elderly married farming couple in the middle of nowhere, quote unquote, the fictional town of Nowhere, Kansas. Courage and his owners are frequently thrown into bizarre misadventures, often involving the paranormal/supernatural and various villains. The show is known for its usual and often disturbing horror and bizarre plot twist. The series combines elements of horror, comedy, fantasy, and, of course, drama as well. This episode, however, didn't make a whole lot of sense. It wasn't a comedy, drama, or even sci-fi, and had no bizarre plot twists, so my question is, why did it even air? I mean, I love the show, but this episode was something everyone saw on Cartoon Network. Courage the Cowardly Dog was my favorite show with its weird sense of humor, but this wasn't anything normal. My son watches Cartoon Network quite often, I might add, and he discovered this one on TV, and I didn't even know what I saw. It was weird. The episode started with the regular intro with Courage waving at the viewer for a minute. It stopped then and there. No faces, no man talking about Courage, just a blank TV. It then got to Muriel and Courage on her lap as usual. The screen turned static, and it showed Courage sitting in a rocking chair by himself. Eustace was standing, and it showed him on the ground crying until he stopped lying on the ground. After that, it showed Courage with a mask over his face. The mask was on Courage as he was rocking in the chair. Finally, he left the chair, dragging Eustace into a basement with Muriel chained to a wall. I saw half the episode and I told my son to immediately leave the room. He did as he was told. He chained Eustace to the wall, and they both begged for help. Courage put a mask over Eustace and Muriel's faces. They both tried to talk, but you could barely hear them as Courage picked up a nearby whip. Courage then begins to whip them without stopping until their heads down, and then he immediately takes the mask off and puts duct tape on both of their mouths. He then places the mask back on them both again. He goes back upstairs into the living room, picking up a nearby rope. With this rope in his hands, he breaks the chains off of Muriel and Eustace, thinking that they're free. They still have the marks on and the duct tape over their mouths. Courage puts the rope over Muriel and Eustace's necks, dragging them both upstairs and outside. Courage drags Eustace and Muriel with the rope over their necks. He continues to drag them until they stop breathing. He heads home, sitting on the rocking chair without a care in the world. That makes the biggest grin a dog could ever make. He continues to grin as he looked at the camera, looking at the viewer for about 2 minutes, and then the screen goes black. And that, my little shadows, was Courage the Cowardly Dog, the lost episode. A Courage the Cowardly Dog creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? I honestly will admit, this was a really interesting kind of story, but the main thing I have a bit of an issue with is that it lacked any kind of honest motivation for why this kind of thing happened. Let me go into this a little bit deeper. For one, we have the episode in of its own self and how it came by. Now, supposedly this episode was seen by everybody in Cartoon Network, yet at the same time, though, I don't remember seeing something like this. I don't remember any of my friends seeing something like that. I don't even remember it being on the news. Well, then again, though, I don't really see a whole reason for that. But still, you would think that something like this that would have actually been aired on television for everybody to see wouldn't have gotten some kind of traction. Like, at least wouldn't have gotten some kind of coverage, even on, like, online forums or websites or whatever. I mean, hell, if anything, if this actually did happen, I'm quite sure 4chan would be having a freaking field day making something like this. But obviously, we don't get that anywhere. There's no articles anywhere. There's nothing about it. There's just a story. And, I mean, I know that these lost episodes things aren't real. They're not meant to be taken literally. I mean, they're not real at all. But even with that being said, there's still issues with the story, though. Because if you're going to make a creepypasta like this, you have to make sure of it that it is realistic. You have to give that a good amount of realism for these kind of genre stories. Otherwise, you're only going to be, well, if anything, it's just not going to play out well for you. In fact, it's going to only make your story not good, especially for a lost episode creepypasta. But like I said, getting back to what I was originally saying, the biggest issue I do have with this story is the motivation, specifically within the episode. Like, for one, why in the living hell would Courage sit there and do that to Muriel and Eustace? Now, I couldn't understand if it was solely Eustace, given the abuse and everything that he's gotten in the past from him. But Muriel, really? It makes no sense why he would even remotely do such a thing. I mean, and why somebody, or a group supposedly, would make something like this. Not only is it completely and utterly pointless, but it completely goes against everything that the show itself stands for. I mean, like I said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why in the world would Courage sit there and beat his owner, Muriel, well, his owners, with a whip, and put gas mask over them and things like that, and then choke them to death? I mean, if anything, I know that, Eustace deserves it, but Muriel has never done one thing to Courage that would ultimately sit there and warrant that kind of attack. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, she's a bit naive, I'll admit, but then again, she's an old woman. What do you expect? She's an old woman that's probably going through I don't know, probably going through dementia or something like that. Who the hell knows? I mean, it's extremely ridiculous for the most part, but I mean, still, if this was solely focused on Eustace, then I could honestly see this being a believable episode. But the fact that they included Muriel in this and put a lot of things that Courage would not do in there, it really just took away from the story itself. Now, I will admit that the grammar is really good. The sentence structuring is well paced out, and it is a relatively okay kind of story. But even with that being said, though, it still could have worked out better. And I think what I hate most about this story, though, is the fact that it just ends with the viewer for 2 minutes, then the screen goes black. Like, you guys probably knew that, it was an abrupt stop right after that. I mean, usually if I end a story, I make sure to kind of go a little bit low. There's a way you do that whenever you narrate a story. Whenever it finally gets to the end, you always either go slower until the ending comes, or tone your voice to an extent to really make sure of it that's the case. But you guys noticed, I'm quite sure, that it was 2 minutes, then screen goes black, and then that's it. That's a problem. I think this one was kind of unfinished, to be completely honest. Now, I will say this. I actually am looking at what the author herself said, and I will admit this person did definitely give it a shot. They obviously put a lot of time and effort to make sure that the grammar and everything was good, and they definitely did try, and I will commend that. However, though, my advice to you, my main advice to you, author, is that next time around, try and make sure that the episode itself seems realistic. I mean, that way it can really help play into it and have people honestly believe that this could be real. I mean, you never know. It could really help. Like with Squidward's suicide and a few other stories, they managed to really get people's minds to, spin a bit. They managed it. But of course, like I always say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. What do you guys think about this story? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and like always, roll the outro. Oh, before I forget, my final rating? I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Anyway, I'll be seeing you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye. In fear and surprise, as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The ritual
gripping horror-driven, nightmarish, gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.